All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Hawkridge Systems Revolutioning Innovation in the Life Sciences webinar. Today we're going to go through part 1, Virtual Human Modeling. Thank you for joining us. We're going to go ahead and get started with this webinar introducing SIMULIA applications in the life sciences. My name is Glenn Compton. I'm with Hawkridge Systems. I've been with Hawkridge Systems a long time. Formerly, I was in charge of only simulation, but I have a new focus towards the entire value solutions set from Dassault Systems, and that includes SIMULIA and some other tools, including CATIA and Inovia. Today, we are going to focus on SIMULIA, and to help me out with that, I've asked a couple of people to join us on this presentation today. One is Karl from Dassault Systems, who's going to focus on the life science applications, and also a former SIMULIA director, Mahesh Kalazam, who is now with Thornton Tomasetti, who is going to enable us to help our customers with life science applications. So together, the combination of these three teams are really going to be a strong advocate and support for customers in the life sciences who are looking for ways to do realistic simulation and potentially don't yet have that expertise. We can help you get there. So to talk about SIMULIA, it's the Dassault Systems brand that's dedicated to making realistic simulation an integral business practice. And when we talk about realistic simulation, we go far beyond what we've introduced to you in the past as SolidWorks simulation. This is a tool set that allows you to, the more that you put into it, the more that you're going to get out of it so that you can explore, discover, understand, and improve not just your products, but how those products integrate with life and nature in general. And specifically today, that's going to be the focus with this life sciences. But to start, Dassault Systems has been in this simulation market for a long time. So I know that probably all of you have been on one of our webinars where we've talked about SolidWorks simulation. SolidWorks simulation has been a Dassault product since 2001, when they bought what used to be the Cosmos product that was already integrated with SolidWorks at the time. And in 2005, they bought the company Abaqus that, of course, had been around since 1978. But when they acquired Abaqus, they formed the SIMULIA brand with that mission statement to bring realistic simulation to your business. Now, along with Abaqus in the past few years, they've brought on tools like iSight and Tosca and FESafe. And all of these tools work together in a similar interface and to help you solve some of the challenges that you might have in your life science simulations. The foundation, of course, is that really robust Abaqus product. Now, Abaqus is a great nonlinear solver, but it certainly can handle linear problems as well. It's very well known for having both implicit and explicit solving capabilities, a very robust contact capability, and the capability to handle fracture, composites, and co-simulation. And certainly when you're in the life sciences field, there are going to be situations where co-simulation is going to be required. With that, I'm going to introduce Karl, who works on the life sciences group in modeling and simulation for personalized healthcare. So Karl, I'm going to change the presenter to you at this time.
Okay, so thank you for that introduction, Glenn, and thanks everyone for joining this webinar. Over the next 20-25 minutes or so, I'd like to tell you a little bit about how our customers in the life sciences domain are transforming the way they think about and design products by adopting a human-centric approach and making increasing use of what we call virtual human modeling. Now, many of the tools and techniques we will discuss here can be applied to other applications. So I hope you will leave inspired by the breakthroughs being enabled by virtual human modeling, not just in the life sciences, but also in your own areas of expertise. So today I will begin with a brief introduction to Dassault Systems and review how modeling and simulation are being used in the life sciences today. I will then spend the remainder of the time discussing the concept of virtual human modeling and a few of its applications. The last topic on the living heart will go much deeper into how virtual human modeling, or VHM in short, is being used to improve cardiovascular care in the real world. And this topic will be presented by my colleague Steve Levine 2 weeks from today. So let's get started. So at Dassault Systems, we see ourselves as a scientific company developing software solutions to help our customers imagine and create more effective, more reliable, and more sustainable products. With a diverse team of more than 15,000 people at Dassault Systems and a large partner ecosystem, we are able to serve 12 different industries, including architecture and construction, automotive, aerospace, electronics, life sciences, and consumer goods. Our global headquarters is in Paris, France, and we have offices and labs all over the world. And the virtual human modeling team is mainly located in Providence, Rhode Island, where I am today. Our mission, as you can see in this quote from our CEO, Bernard Charles, is to provide businesses and people the ability to imagine sustainable innovations capable of harmonizing product, nature, and life. Now, while this holistic approach is being gradually adopted across all industries, it is especially relevant to the life sciences, and I hope to give you a sense of how VHM is helping harmonize product and life. So let's now talk a little bit about simulation. At Dassault Systems, we divide the vast life science space into 3 segments: medical devices, pharma and biotech, and patient care. As each of these segments has its own unique set of challenges and user profiles. In medical devices, simulation users typically tend to be engineers, as most of us on this call probably are, and have been using modeling and simulation for several decades. However, in comparison to other engineering industries such as automotive or aerospace, simulation usage is still quite immature and a lot more can be done. In the pharma industry, computational modeling and simulation is widespread at the molecular and biochemistry scales, but is also expanding into medical equipment, materials handling, and product packaging. Finally, in the patient care segment, simulation has the potential to be truly transformational, but today is still in its infancy. For this webinar, we will focus mainly on the medical devices segment, but you will hear more about the other 2 segments in the next webinar on the living heart. So as I just mentioned, our customers in the medical devices segment have been using our simulation tools for many years and in many applications. These applications range from relatively low-risk products such as orthotics, syringes, hearing aids, to moderate-risk products such as knee or hip implants that operate within the human body but are fairly well understood, all the way to high-risk devices such as artificial heart valves and coronary stents, where failure rates are significantly higher and where much remains to be done to improve device efficacy, safety, and reliability. I won't spend too much time discussing our solutions for life sciences per se, but I do want to point out that we offer a broad portfolio of tools that are used for multi-physics simulations, durability and fatigue life estimation, process automation, parametric and non-parametric or shape optimization, and of course, virtual human modeling, which uses all of the other tools, but additionally includes domain-specific knowledge and know-how that can make your job easier. All of these tools are, of course, available on the 3D Experience platform, which inherently supports collaboration, analytics, and end-to-end digital continuity. As you can see here, there are a number of medical device applications where structural and fluid simulations are used to improve device integrity. For instance, to maintain sealing in a syringe, to improve device efficacy, as in the case of largely deforming and fluid-filled catheters and peristaltic pumps, for modeling the adhesive characteristics and the integrity of medical devices and equipment packaging. All of these simulations, at the end of the day, help reduce development time and cost and help you improve confidence in device reliability. Once a simulation methodology has been sufficiently refined, it can then be automated and applied to other designs or devices, which ensures consistent use of best practices and reduces the likelihood of error. Further, you can then focus on device optimization and uncertainty quantification that take into account variability in material or geometric parameters or operating conditions. As before, these simulations, again, help reduce development time and improve reliability. So let's take a quick look at how these methods can be applied to the design of a stent. We may begin by simulating the stent under its operating conditions. We then use parametric and/or shape optimization to iterate on the design until an optimal design is identified with respect to peak stresses, strains, or whatever variables most influence the success of the product. We could then also conduct uncertainty analyses to better understand the sensitivity of the stent and its likelihood of failure. So let's go a little deeper into this. So in this example, we begin by simulating the crimping and insertion of the stent into the artery, which could be a peripheral or coronary artery. We then simulate its in situ deployment via balloon expansion, and then of course apply the pulsatile blood pressure loading, which is what it experiences while in situ, and examine the cyclic stresses and strains experienced by the stent, which will determine its fatigue life. The red circles here indicate the hotspots most susceptible to fatigue failure. Once this workflow has been automated, we can now identify the specific material or geometric parameters that can be modified and conduct an optimization study around them. If applicable, we can also conduct a shape optimization, which may result in a heterogeneous cross-section. Here we show the final parameter and shape optimized results resulting from these studies. And you can see here that parametric optimization was able to increase fatigue life by 8% over the initial or baseline design, while a shape optimization was able to further increase fatigue life to 14%. It should be clear that multiphysics simulations combined with optimization capabilities can be very beneficial to all sorts of medical devices and equipment. So with this kind of overview of medical devices used today, I'd like to now shift gears and introduce the topic of virtual human modeling. To motivate the discussion, let's for a minute step back and examine the state of the medical device market today using what we may call a customer evolution map. On the horizontal axis here, we can place makers of class 1, 2, and 3 medical devices. For those of you who may not be familiar with this terminology, class 1 devices include low-risk products such as syringes, wheelchairs, reading glasses, and so on. Class 2 medical devices include contact lenses, cochlear implants, orthopedic screws, etc. And class 3 devices are high-risk medical products such as pacemakers, coronary stents, heart valves, and so on, where device performance is critical. And the vertical axis here indicates the degree of simulation maturity in these companies. And we can see that core simulation capabilities like multiphysics, optimization, simulation data, and process management are at this point well appreciated and increasingly being deployed across all device makers. We also see that class 2 and class 3 device makers are beginning to increasingly simulate the interaction of the device with the body rather than just simulating the device to supplement or potentially replace experimental bench tests. This ability to simulate what we call product life interaction will eventually open the door to virtual preclinical or clinical trials, or at least the ability to improve the design of clinical trials so that we can reduce the chances of failure or better understand the patient populations for which a particular device might be more effective. Product life interaction simulations then also open the door for personalization, where a device can be designed to match an individual's characteristics. But this is really the transformative potential of VHM that we will now discuss. I'm also glad to note that the FDA is very much aligned with us on the value of VHM, as you can see in the Medical Device Development Tools, or the MDDT program, which expressly mentions computer models of patients and virtual clinical trials as the next stage in the evolution of this industry. So with that background, then let's get into the topic of virtual human modeling. Now, for us at Dassault Systems, virtual human modeling, or VHM, covers a very wide range of human modeling capabilities. Broadly speaking, we can divide them into two categories. On the one hand, on the left here, we can build models of internal organs and systems to simulate the dynamic and adaptive physiology of the body and the effect of drugs and devices over the short term and the long term. We have particular expertise at modeling the biological systems shown here, and have even developed our own models for some organs such as the knee and the heart, which we will cover in more detail in the next webinar. On the other hand, we can also model humans interacting with their environment, as you see on the right. These models can have varying degrees of fidelity depending on the application at hand. For instance, the bending model here can be used to estimate the motions and loads imposed on the musculoskeletal system as a person goes about their daily activities. The human in the vehicle is a multi-body systems model that considers the human-car mechanical interaction and can be run in real time. while the image at the bottom right is intended to simulate the electromagnetic exposure of a human in an MRI scanner. All of these models are managed on the 3D Experience platform, and it's easy to switch from one representation to another. For instance, after estimating the mechanical loads on a specific joint, say the hip joint, we can then build a highly detailed submodel of that local region where we include rich anatomical and biomechanical detail necessary to optimize the design of a hip implant intended for a specific patient, given their unique anatomy, physiology, and activity level. Now, one of the most challenging aspects of virtual human modeling is the ability to model the biomechanics of human tissue. The human tissue encompasses everything from skin, bones, muscles, tendons, ligaments, fat, and even blood. Obviously, these biomaterials have drastically different mechanical properties that must be modeled accurately if we are to improve the efficacy of a medical device. Now, additional complexity is introduced by the fact that the same tissue may behave differently at different bodily locations. For instance, skin on the palm is quite different from skin on the face. And the fact that human tissue exhibits different mechanical behaviors under different loading scenarios. Over the years, we have developed models that can accurately simulate the complex nature of human tissue. As we move from single regions of tissue to the interaction between different kinds of tissue, things become even more complex, as the internal friction and potential separation between tissues must also be considered, as might occur, for instance, in an ACL injury. We believe that our tools and techniques for modeling human tissue biomechanics are at the forefront of the industry and can greatly simplify the burden for mechanical device makers making the move to virtual human modeling. In many applications, it becomes necessary to consider not just a single tissue or organ or even an individual, but to consider the large variation among people. For instance, MRI equipment makers are required to demonstrate the safety of the machine on any potential subject, and this in turn depends on the subject's size, weight, spatial tissue distribution, and even metabolic rate. To account for these variations, we have developed a library of human whole body models that can be used for population studies to understand the efficacy and safety of a medical product. While the models shown on the left simulate our static models, we also have technology to position these models in arbitrary postures to better simulate their interaction with the product, as shown in the images of the humans in the vehicles. For completeness, I also want to mention that we can develop whole body systems models of humans, as shown in the far right, that can represent the internal physiology of entire systems, such as the cardiovascular or nervous system. As before, these models can be used either on their own to model global or local disease conditions such as hypertension or atherosclerosis, or they can be used to provide more accurate boundary conditions for traditional mesh-based submodels of specific regions such as the heart. And again, you will hear more about this when we discuss the living heart in the next webinar. Now, while having realistic human models is of course important, our customers also need simplified and easily deployable workflow solutions to complete the task at hand. And this is an area where we have spent considerable effort, and we can now offer tools and techniques. Sorry about that. Can now offer tools and techniques to help with model generation from image data and the incorporation of model motion capture data into the simulation. We have also developed our own library of tissue mechanics model and common everyday motions that can easily be applied and tuned for the application being studied. All of this can help create personalized simulations to develop patient-specific medical implants or patient-specific surgical intervention plans. Once the simulation is complete, we can then use realistic rendering to facilitate collaboration between expert analysts and non-experts such as designers, marketers, and clinicians. To put this in perspective, let's look at a few examples of how VHM technology is being used today. Drug delivery is an area of high innovation these days as patient experience becomes central to the success or failure of a new or existing medication. Patients are increasingly looking for lightweight, ergonomic, and painless solutions that minimize disruption to their quality of life. This means that in addition to therapeutic efficiency, the design of the actual delivery mechanism must consider such factors as the penetration of skin, the adhesive interaction between the device and skin, the fluidics involved in injection and dispersal of the bolus, and the overall usability and comfort of the device. As you can see in the animation on the left, drug makers are using highly nonlinear multi-layer models of skin to design smaller and minimally invasive needles that can still deliver the medication effectively. This involves developing formulations with the right viscosity and other physical properties to ensure flow in confined situations while maintaining reasonable injection pressures and also minimizing loss of sealing or leakage. Now, multiphysics solutions from SIMULIA can address all of these aspects and are increasingly being adopted by drug and device makers in the race to differentiate their products in the market. And this application is therefore a great example of human-centric design. Another rapidly growing area is the development of wearable electronics devices that offer health monitoring functionality and are part of the burgeoning digital health domain. In addition to the traditional drop testing and other mechanical reliability assessments, here we also need to consider the bidirectional coupling of the device and the body. For instance, as antennas become smaller and flexible, we must ensure they remain operational when on or in the human body. At the same time, we must limit the degree of electromagnetic exposure and/or the subsequent thermal impact on human tissue. As you can see here, our customers are using increasingly sophisticated VHM technologies to address these new challenges. This then brings us to the emerging topic of bioelectromagnetics that I'd like to mention briefly. As MRI scanners and other imaging equipment use more powerful magnets or microwave fields, we need to ensure that human exposure remains within acceptable limits, which means considering anatomical features, tissue properties, and thermal convection due to blood flow. These models are also needed for new and growing medical therapies, such as electromagnetically induced thermal ablation of tumors and hypothermia treatments. Moreover, as the range of wearable devices and medical implants continues to expand, we must also account for the electromagnetic safety of these devices when exposed to medical radiation, as well as environmentally propagating electromagnetic fields. On the right, you see electromagnetic simulations of coronary stents, pacemakers, and neuromodulators, all of which use human modeling to improve device safety and to set medical exposure protocols. So with that, I'd like to kind of wrap up today's discussion with a couple of examples on the human brain. This first example is on impact-induced traumatic brain injury, which is a topic of much recent attention in the news, specifically as it occurs in contact sports. Here, the focus is on developing better protective equipment, such as football helmets. Developing better helmets, in turn, means understanding exactly how impact forces are transmitted across the head and the brain. In this case, our collaborators developed highly detailed anatomical models of the skull, brain, cerebrospinal fluid, and the spinal column, and also considered relative motion and separation between these components to more accurately predict the likelihood and the severity of traumatic brain injury, which can then be used to develop better protective gear. And since we've thus far focused mainly on medical devices, I thought I'd end with an example from patient care. In this case, that of neuromodulation for the treatment of schizophrenia. As you probably know, schizophrenia is a debilitating mental disorder, and treatments, where applicable, can be prohibitively expensive, especially in developing countries like India. In recent years, an interesting new therapy has begun to show promise, something called transcranial direct current stimulation, which involves the application of very low-intensity electric currents to the surface of the scalp. Now, by controlling the polarity and magnitude of the applied current, it's possible to stimulate very specific regions of the neocortex to reduce the severity of the disorder. Since this is a low-cost solution that can be administered anywhere, and since unlike a drug, it offers highly localized stimulation, it is being actively researched by several mental health institutes across the world. However, the treatment turns out not to be always effective, and our collaborators in India wanted to know if virtual human modeling could help them identify subjects more likely to be helped by the treatment. As in the previous case, we began by building highly detailed patient-specific finite element models of the entire head and brain, and using these models to predict the loci of maximal neurostimulation and the distribution of the overall electric field in the brain. Using this approach, we are now able to design the treatment montage to generate optimal patient-specific neurostimulation and thus expand the set of people who can benefit from this treatment. At the same time, we are also working on importing the simulation results back into MRI space so that clinicians can better understand the results and propose clinical alternatives. With that, then, I would like to conclude today's webinar with the two animations that show how not just the life sciences, but industries across the spectrum, in this case in consumer goods and consumer packaged goods, are placing the person at the center of the design. I hope this overview of virtual human modeling has enlightened you on how we are helping our users shift the paradigm from product-centric to human-centric design, thereby enhancing the holistic experience of their customers in turn and differentiating themselves in the marketplace. So please keep in mind that part 2 of this series, focusing on the living heart, will be presented in a couple of weeks by Steve Levine. And with that, I'd like to conclude. Thank you very much for your attention.
All right. Thank you, Karl. Before we conclude, we're going to hear from Mahesh Kalazam of Thornton Tomasetti. And I wanted to explain that Hawkridge Systems has partnered with Thornton Tomasetti so that we could expand the level of service that we can offer to our customers in life sciences. As you've seen the examples that Karl went through, certainly these are complicated things that take a great deal of understanding of the human body and the human body tissues. And this has not necessarily been a focus of Hawkridge Systems over the last 20 years. So whereas we have plenty of expertise in electronics and structural analysis, and we can offer services in those capacity, we realized that we needed to reach out to this partnership so that we could offer this level of expertise to our customers who are in life sciences, who really want to tackle these really difficult problems. So Mahesh comes from us formerly from SIMULIA for 20 years. He was the director of life sciences before he came over to Thornton Tomasetti as a vice president to grow their consulting business in life sciences. Mahesh?
Thank you, Glenn. Could you go to the next slide, please? So first of all, as Glenn mentioned, I'm very glad that we're partnering with Hawkridge, and we really hope to be able to help advance the usage of modeling and simulation for life sciences. So the first point I'd like to make is that we are not new to modeling and simulation, so we actually have over 4 decades of modeling and simulation expertise applied to multiple industries with a variety of tools and methods, including many that were invented and pioneered by our team. So more specifically, we have quite a deep knowledge of SIMULIA software. That, of course, includes Abaqus, EyeSight, Tosca, and so on. We also have the expertise to develop material models, user subroutines, so pretty much anything that you need with SIMULIA. At the same time, we also have a dedicated team that's working on life science applications with specific expertise in virtual human modeling, some of the topics that Karl mentioned. That also covers, in our case, the living heart model and other organs. So as an example, we recently presented the work that we have done on automating adjustments to the mitral valve behavior with the living heart so that we can move from what I show on the slide as baseline 1 to a new baseline that actually corresponds to observe imaging data. So a recording of this work will be available on the SIMULIA Learning community. But if you need it sooner, just send me a note or contact Glenn, and we should be able to get it to you. So the example, as you'll see later on, is that it not only uses Abaqus, it actually involves the living heart model, which is a pretty advanced model of the heart. But we also took advantage of optimization methods with EyeSight in order to change the behavior of the model to be able to match what we saw as imaging data. And that kind of expertise is what we hope to be able to bring to you as you start adopting some of these methods. Okay. Next slide, please. So again, just to go back for a second to why we're working with Hawkridge and SIMULIA. As Karl showed, there's a lot that can be done with SIMULIA tools for life science applications, but very often the question is, how can this be done in an efficient manner? How can you take your current teams and scale up your usage to adopt some of these methods that have a lot of potential? So basically, as you consider adopting or expanding your usage of SIMULIA software for life science applications, we can bring our expertise to the table and help you and show you how this can be done. And some of the ways we can do that are, for example, by offering customized training for specific life science applications. We do offer on and off-site mentoring, so we can come in and show you exactly how to solve your specific problems. If you feel that more advanced research is necessary in order to transform the out-of-the-box methods to your needs, we can do that. And as you can see, there are a variety of other methods, tasks that we can do for you and show you how they're done, so that you can begin to leverage the power of the SIMULIA software for life science applications. So in terms of application areas, we cover medical devices certainly, but we also look at pharmaceutical applications such as manufacturing tablets, drug delivery mechanisms, planning treatments, predicting outcomes with, if you have 5 different device selections, which device might offer you the best chances of outcomes. And also, we do cover consumer products, as Karl mentioned, especially for situations where you have a device that is interacting with the human body. So it could be a protective device like a helmet, or it could be, clothing or shoes, sneakers, and so on. Okay? So again, this partnership between us will allow you to advance your use of SIMULIA products for life science applications in a confident and productive manner. Next slide, please. So on this slide, I have just a few examples. I'm not going to go into all the details, but at any point, if you're interested in learning more about these applications, I'll be glad to share that with you. So the key is that we offer a scalable solution that ranges from trying to help you understand the basic behavior of product characteristics. It could be stresses, fatigue life, and so on, but also go beyond that, take your usage to the current state of the art. So as an example, if you take the stent example that Karl showed, we can certainly help with that. So optimizing a stent behavior in isolation, whether it's changing the dimensions or the shape, we can certainly help with that. But we also believe that there's a lot more value to be gained if you were able to model and optimize the stent behavior as it's placed into a realistic model of the vasculature. So that's the kind of thing that we can help you with. So we can help you start from where you are right now. We can help you adopt modeling and simulation, and then work with you on the journey as along with Hawkridge and SIMULIA to take your usage to the current state of the art. Okay, so I really look forward to taking our rigorous approach to life science applications and help you not only get started, but also evolve and accelerate your adoption of simulation for your needs. So that's all I have to say. I look forward to opportunities to work with you and help you on your journey as you adopt modeling and simulation for life science applications. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mahesh. And thank you for everyone for attending. If you missed part of the presentation, we'll be sending out a link to a recorded version of the webinar. And I hope that you do come back in a couple weeks, where we'll have Steve Levine, who is the Senior Director of SIMULIA Life Sciences, who's going to go through the Living Heart Project. A very exciting project. If you can imagine it, you can see a graphic on the screen right now where SIMULIA has actually modeled a human heart with human heart muscle tissue that reacts to giving it an electronic signal. And in this capacity, it allows you to use that heart model in situ with devices such as stents or aortic fallout valves to determine the forces that those mechanisms might see when they are implanted in a human heart. Steve, of course, is going to talk about that in greater detail in a couple of weeks. Again, thank you for attending, and we look forward to working with you in the future.